Union vendors, black vendors, whatever, and so on. Very nice. And it gave me a lot of input for my budget. And in fact, I think one or two times I referenced the fact that part of the group that I consulted was the vendors in markets and so on. And I remember distinctly this time when I, not as a minister, when I went to buy sorrel. You know, sorrel comes into the season coming close to the Christmas. And so I went there to African Guyanese vendor and asked her how she was selling the sorrel. And she told me $100 a parcel or something like that. Very small parcel and so on. So I said to her, if I bought $1,000 worth of it, whether you throw in a little what we call boxes, you know, as a kind of business strategy consumer to the seller. And the lady proceeded to tell me how no, she can't do that because how much money is for a bag of sorrel, and she had to go to Canal #1 to buy this sorrel and all this kind of stuff. That the lady, you know, that's a very strange business strategy that you have. I mean, would you prefer to have this sorrel later to this afternoon or having to come back tomorrow and sell them rather than having a practice that suggests, you know, somebody comes buying $1,000 worth of it, that's 10 parcels gone, all you're doing is throwing it, so on. And I said to her, from where did you do you hail? And she said, from Buxton. And I said, you know, that is interesting that you coming from Buxton and going to Canal #1, #2, ever pulled on the West Demerara to buy a bag of sorrel to come to Boden Market to resell it. I said, you know, this is, I said it's hard to digest, really, because I know Buxton is a village back in the day that was known for its agriculture, known for its fruits. You know, and I mean, sorrel is not a heavy. I plant sorrel in my yard, but I can't plant. But sorrel grows in my yard, and at Christmas we rip enough to make a couple jugs of drink. So I don't know that there's a big technology in sorrel. But the point I was making is, if you really want to empower yourself and have and talk about wealth and talking about income and so on, we have to have these programs where people move from retailers into producers, right? They move from retailers into producers. And so programs like RAID that will open those backlands and put in the infrastructure and so forth, and that will give them the extension services that they will require for plants and so on, and will give them the post-harvest assistance to make certain that they find the markets and so that they can become viable and maintain their status in the community, or raise the status in the community. So I thought by way of some comments on this and so on, that while it's good, in memory of a titan like Kwayano, I think he will love to see the symposium continue, but that he will want to see us move beyond rhetoric into consultative programs of action. So by the time the next one comes around, you will have a part of the program that talks about the report card and the structuring of the new symposium to deal with either the report card or with issues that continue to be born in and so on. What do you think, Kida?
Of course, it's a practical recommendation, and even as you mentioned that, I reflected on the fact that when we were observing the occasion of Brother Yusi's 96th birth anniversary, one of the things he requested or was suggested and accepted by us all was that we were going to give out 96 plants in the Buxtonian community, one for each year. And that thing did not get stuck in Buxton, because communities all across this country, black communities, especially those that were touched by the brilliance and the exemplary conduct of Brother UC, requested that they too be part of this program. And so I know for a fact, coming out of the 96th birth anniversary observances, there are lots and lots of plants around this country. I don't know if they name them UC Koyana, but there are lots of plants out there. And yes, those recommendations are practical, and I usually try as much as I tell people on my program. When I tell them to do things, it is things that I myself am willing to do and perhaps I'm in an advanced state of doing. People who are around me will know that most of the recommendations I make, especially for economic survival, are things that I myself have tried or am doing. Just to reflect on that surreal story and the RAID project, I must say, and I always tell people when they talk about the coalition not doing anything for black people, I refer those villages that the RAID project were identified, the RAID project was identified for and implemented in. Mocha is ahead of the curve right now as far as I understand. Mocha, with the help of a certain agriculturalist, has now gone to market with new and innovative products or product. I can tell you that they hold a frequent market there and so on. Buxton, on the other hand, Buxton had started producing. Lands were being taken up nicely. But the usual challenge with Buxton, as soon as the coalition, or perhaps even before the coalition was forced out of office, Buxton started facing some of the very challenges which had caused its productive capacity to dwindle. The farm to market road is a problem. When the weather is bad, you don't get in, you don't get out. Getting in is not as difficult or frustrating if you don't have crops at the back there. But when you have produce that is going to overripe and spoil, and you can imagine the frustration. And the Buxton farmers are seeing a whole lot of that. Even before the coalition was forced out of office, because I don't know if people know that the RAID project to a large extent is one of your grandchildren.
That's correct.
You know that part of the component of that project was the agricultural machinery which should be stationed in the communities.
That's correct.
And overlooked or supervised by the Agriculture Ministry.
That was a novel feature to get around the problems that previous projects had, where they had to depend on the central government and to provide that kind of assistance. And even when it was forthcoming, it wasn't timely. It wasn't timely, and therefore the frustration. So to avoid the frustration, we structure the project in a manner where these pieces of equipment will remain in the community to be used by the community. And when it's not being used by the community, it could be rented to other communities to generate income.
Right. One of the problems Buxton faced very early on was that those pieces of equipment were removed. And I understand taken to a Borbis Indian community by people who were working out of the Ministry of Agriculture, more particularly the NDIA. Buxton has never gotten back those pieces of equipment. And so I was pointing out to somebody the other day, when this administration shouting that they're going to get them tracked in 30 minutes and so on, it's not that they were getting them tractor that doesn't belong to the village. They were simply going to replace the RAID project tractor. But what about the other pieces of implements? Right? And these are things which, like I said, sometimes our leaders fail to highlight enough and fail to fight for hard enough. Because those pieces of equipment belong to the village as far as I know. And they're absent from the village, while our village farmers are suffering and, like you say, can't necessarily compete with other communities which have had the support of previous government without such interference. Right? And while the sister was saying, man, I can't do that because the profit is marginal on this bag of sorrel, trust me, I believe her. Trust me.
No, I believed her. I believed her. I think I was looking at the wider issue. Perhaps she, and again, as I said, that's where we have to take these things into stride and do something about them, right? I mean, she was there doing her hustle. I could imagine the plight of the black household and so on. But a little bit of education would see her buying two bags. That the rate of turnover, once the rate of turnover was faster, she was likely to get a bigger profit. You know, these kind of little small little things. These kind of small little things that we can impart in people. You know, they don't require any big set of science or any kind of thing. I absolutely agree with what she was saying, but all I'm saying also that she was competing also with the next door neighbor, an Indian lady, who obviously had bigger parcels and who was prepared to throw in a whole parcel and so on. Now, while she could not do that, she still has to compete with that other vendor or the other vendors down the road. And when they are packing up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock and going home with most or all of their stock gone, she's there well into the night. She's there well into the night trying to sell out a bag of sorrel. Now, just figure out, if she's a breadwinner, what is happening in her household in terms of if she has children at home, grandchildren, whoever else, who's looking after them. You know, if they're going to school, what is happening to their education? What is happening to their homework? You know, all of those kinds of matters come into play, you know, and that is why I'm pleading in this part where the symposium was concerned. I'm quite happy I was invited to the symposium. I'm quite happy to be able to participate, but when I participate and so forth, I always want to see some outcomes. You know, people mustn't just invite me because of a high-profile person or something to just come and so on. But there must be outcomes for which we can review after a certain period. We must be able to move on. You know, these fora are important for identifying, for advocating, and so on. But we also have to have other actionable policies, programs, and so on that we can implement to better or to improve the status that we are talking about. That is what I am going. So the lady, we should have a program in place, and that program in place was the SLED program. And yes, that was another of my babies. SLED, I had many babies, and many of them I don't have to think them. I put them on the rubric of the coalition, as I not promoted myself, but this is coalition's thing. But the SLED program that I indicated there was a program that I initiated, and it was designed to help these very small entrepreneurs overcome this whole issue about access to capital and access to intelligence. Because, you know, sometimes you say you're going to buy a bag of golden apple and all spoiled. Well, you don't have the business intelligence to tell you that you're not going to buy no bag of golden apple and parcel them out 3 and 4 and hope to sell them out in one day, you know, and so on. So all those things we were trying to do, mentoring, tutoring, basic business sense, and so on. That is what the SLED program was meant to do. Unfortunately, as you well know. You know, I want to give a shout out to it's not my friend, but he started in South Prineville with the Psycho Andrews from Andrews Supermarket, who has just opened another branch, which perhaps is his main branch now, at the old Nigel's Supermarket. I want to just caution the brother, because I see he big up a lot of people and so forth, which is good, right? Once you get help along the way, you can you must be able to give thanks and so on. But I want to caution the brother to examine closely why Nigel's Supermarket ultimately failed or was forced out of business. Ultimately, examine those factors and not to make the same or similar mistakes. He is in a very cutthroat business, and from the time he understands that, he must have his armor ready, the strategies and business sense put together to be able to counter whatever he's going to face in that business. But once there's positives from the Nigel's market that he has identified, that he should emulate and even surpass. And one of those positives was courtesy, customer care, friendliness, right? You could have gone into Nigel's supermarket and you got all of those. That's one thing about Nigel's supermarket. The customer friendliness and care and so on. And the staff there were super. I don't think you could have gone anywhere else in the private sector and had that level of friendliness and continuous, not put on, the continuous friendliness of the staff and the customer care that you got, right? I don't see that in any of the supermarket, to be quite honest, that they have around. Some of them try, but they don't rise up to where Nigel's one. And so, Mr. Andrews, I wish you the best of success, right? You have already one strike. You're a black entrepreneur, right? So try to remove that strike. People know. Please do not fail. Please do not fail, because you are among the few black entrepreneurs that we can pinpoint. We can pinpoint as representative of the black entrepreneur. Okay, very few, and I hope you represent the rise in the black entrepreneur in Guyana. And so, whatever Ipadaji and Acton and all these people are contemplating, it has to be part of that. Has to be how to create black enterprise, how to sustain black businesses, how to improve black wealth, and so forth. Right? Can't depend only on the government. Because of the government. You know, I mean, we are also responsible for ourselves. You know, and that is what I try to put over at the symposium. I saw this morning, I woke up to the contents of a press conference that was held by Mayor Motley. I'm not dealing with our press conference, but what I want to bring to the fore is something that I said on this program. The APNU said on their press conference and so forth, which is a cap in the prices for gasoline and diesel, and that the government bears the subsidy. The government bears the subsidy to cap the prices of gasoline and diesel, which are extremely important inputs into almost any facet of life. Any facet of life. And the government bears the subsidy. A mechanism could be worked out. Now here is Mayor Motley, second time around as far as I'm concerned, announcing a cap on gasoline and diesel in Barbados until January 2023. Until January 2023. You will recall that Mayor Motley, a few weeks ago, also took the suggestion that I made on this program, and I have been making since last year, that if you want to get rid of indirect taxes such as VAT, and ensure that the quote-unquote trickle down to the consumer, you will have to engage in a contract with the businessmen for the pass-through to happen. That the pass-through is not going to happen automatically, if at all, if you didn't have this compact with the business people who providing these particular items. No, they didn't do it in Guyana, but Motley did it in Barbados. After long negotiations with the business community there, she was able to have a signed agreement with them to pass through the reliefs that she was given by way of indirect taxes. Now you tell me what it is that is wrong in Guyana, where because you don't belong to that party, or you don't belong, or you're so-called not favored with the government, that they refuse to listen to what is credible and sound advice. Tell me, and how do you progress in a country? How do you progress in a country when one side believes they're the fountain of knowledge, one man believes he is Guyana, and the rest of Guyana can go to hell? What? You create enemies of your own people. You create enemies of your own people and decide that you're not dealing with enemies. Barbados listening to constructive proposals and are implemented. You don't want to listen because it didn't emanate from your kind of people or your people. And so we suffer here. We suffer here, even though we have far more resources than right now coming to us than Barbados can have. Barbados is still in an IMF program. We are not in an IMF program. So if Barbados in an IMF program can do those two things that we were advocating in this country, that we are not in an IMF program and we have massive sums of money coming to us, and these are not permanent measures that we are talking about. They're temporary. They're temporary measures that will be reviewed every so often, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, as the situation develops. But no, don't listen to Jordan, don't listen to APNU, don't listen to the coalition. They are anathema to progress, and then, of course, the rest of the community and the rest of the countries suffers. But Kenaki, as you say, you have to soldier on. Is that so?
Definitely you have to. Definitely. Giving up is never the option.
Yeah, so quickly on the subject that you were talking about on the merchant banking as such, we had put it off last week for this week. I look at the two questions and so on that the guy had posed. They're very interesting questions. I hope that we can somehow deal with it in the way that he wanted it to. So this whole concept of merchant banking evolved from medieval merchants trading in commodities such as cloth. Cloth was perhaps the most important one. Hence, the original purpose of a merchant bank was to facilitate and or finance production and trade of commodities. So that's how you got the word merchant banking. So there's no big set of set of mystery there. However, merchant banking has evolved since that rudimentary approach grid, and it now refers to a financial institution providing capital to companies in the form of share ownership instead of loans. A merchant bank can also provide advice on corporate matters to firms in which they invest. Other activities of merchant bank will include issue management, portfolio management, credit syndication. Now, credit syndication is, for example, a loan provided by a group of lenders, such as the one procured for Gaisuku by Nisil. Remember the bond?
Yes.
$30 billion that was procured?
Yes.
Well, that was procured via syndication of bonds, where a number of investors would have come together, including NIS, insurance companies, and all of them. They came together and pooled their money to break the bond, right? And the bond was syndicated to Republic. All right. So that's what syndication necessarily means. A group of investors together put in their money, and one person will Republic Bank. So that was a good aspect of syndication in Guyana that hopefully will be replicated. Merchant banks also accept accept credit, like type of letter of credit, authorizing payment on or after a specific date, once the terms of the letter of credit would have been met. And merchant banks could also counsel on mergers and acquisition, insurance, and so on and so forth. Merchant banks can help in processing loan applications for short and long-term credit from finance institutions. So they provide a range of management type services that ordinarily would not be available to the uninitiated or the investor or the entrepreneur who looking for capital but can't get from the regular commodity banks because they either don't have status or they don't have credit. And we'll, if time permits, we'll perhaps talk about credit or talk about the not or so on. Now, merchant banks could be public sector oriented, or they can be private sector merchant banks. Now, the last time I think I had said that the first merchant bank in Guyana was the DFL-SA. But actually, on reflection, when I looked at it, DFL-SA out of Trinidad and Tobago was more like a private sector development bank, if the two terms can go together. But the first merchant bank, the first and only merchant bank up to the time that this new merchant bank came into Guyana, was called the Guyana Americas Merchant Bank. It still exists, but it's so nondescript, means that not many people know about it. In fact, in looking at the internet, all I find is Guyana Americas Merchant Bank, but I don't find too much on it. But what I do know, it was established in 1995, and it got its license from the commercial bank around that time to engage from Bank of Guyana. It got its license from Bank of Guyana around that time to engage in merchant banking in Guyana. It's a subsidiary of the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry, and it's housed in GBTI's headquarters in Kingston there. It's supposed to be providing investment banking, investment management, brokerage services, and so on. Now, as I said, I don't know much about the activities of the Guyana Americas Merchant Bank. I couldn't find on the internet any report of its activities, and therefore I don't know what is its success rate, and so on. Perhaps it will wish to raise its profile by coming out from under the GBTI and coming out on its own and indicate exactly how it has fared so far. Although it may not name who are or were and so on. It will talk about numbers of people it assisted in the areas and so on. So we get an understanding of where that is. Right? But merchant banks are another part of assisting in the deepening of the financial market. Now, this New Haven Inc. merchant is obviously the second merchant bank in Guyana. It was issued by the Bank of Guyana. It's the brainchild apparently of Guyanese Floyd Haynes, who hails out of Washington, D.C. And the bank was launched on July 24, 2022. Its head office presently is located at 304 Church Street, Georgetown, which previously housed the office of the opposition leader when Jagdeo was the opposition leader. So that's just by way of finding a thing. There's no connection between. I'm not trying to put any connection between the bank and Jagdeo. It's just by way of those who want to find where the bank is. Then that is the marker where the leader of the opposition. Now they say they will be offering equity financing. That is giving financing to people who are willing to give up part of their ownership of the business in return for financing. You ever heard about Shark Tank?
Yes, it's a series I used to look at.
Correct. So the Shark Tank is another form. They're not a merchant bank, but they are like what you call venture capitalists. Venture capitalists. They are wealthy investors who are prepared to listen to ideas for startups or for business that already exists, and for people who want to sell those ideas in return for financing or for technical and managerial expertise. So, for example, I saw recently there was a startup of something ride, cab ride or something
Book a ride.
Here.
Free advertisement this morning. Book a ride.
Book a ride, and by the way, congratulations to that sister who persevered. But I think she said she had a problem again with the issue of capital, finding capital, you know, and every time they talk about Access Bank. When you go to commercial bank is not a development bank. You know, a commercial bank is not a development bank. So don't talk about, if you go to the commercial bank, you have all these problems and so on. The commercial bank is holding your money and my money as depositors. Okay? A commercial bank is an intermediary. They intermediate between depositors and investors. So they take our money, our savings, my savings, your savings, everybody else's savings, and they lend part of it, not all of it, they can't lend all of it, lend part of it to investors and those who want to borrow and so on. But in doing so, they have to apply the strictest scrutiny and so forth. Okay? They have to apply that. They also have to make a profit so that they can continue in business and continue to track my savings. So they have to pay me some kind of interest that makes it worthwhile for me to continue banking with them. You know? And of course, they provide another set of array of services and so on, all of which has to be costly. So when you go to a commercial bank, don't expect them to give you a 1% and a 2% lending. That is not what commercial banks are for. Their name is commercial banks.
Yes, but part of the challenge which you might have mentioned earlier is the lack of information, lack of education as to the differences of these banks and the availability of developmental banks. How many developmental banks are Guyanese really exposed to in this country? You just named, you just said this New Haven is the second merchant bank that is visiting this country. Guy Bank might have been a development bank. Which others do we have?
No, the merchant, and that is why. So let me just continue on this one.
Yes.
So the view that I was trying to put out there is that there are so many other sources of financing, albeit in Guyana they're not there. They're not there, but they still can be considered. Now, let us take the Book a Ride story. Now, that's a startup. Now, with this New Haven Merchant Bank, she could have gone to the New Haven Merchant Bank, because I don't know anything about Guyana Americas Bank. As I said, I don't know anything about it. It has not made itself well known in the community. It will do that. I don't know what is their work and what. But assuming based on what Mr. Floridians had indicated at the opening, this Book a Ride, for example, could have gone to the merchant bank, discussed with them for proposal, and try to entice them into an equity partnership. So instead of her looking for a loan from the commercial bank or whoever is going to lend her, she could go for equity. And that means now that merchant bank will look at our proposal and says, damn, this is a good proposal, and begin to negotiate with her and say, listen, we are prepared, we as a merchant bank prepared to take 30% stake in the company in exchange for us putting up capital of, say, 100,000 US dollars, which is 20 million Guyana dollars. And they can negotiate. I'm just giving you example
Yes.
of what can happen. So right away, she has $20 million of quote unquote free money. Free money because that is not a loan. New Haven Bank would have now taken a stake in our business. Okay? And the success of our business, right? The success of our business will determine the returns that the merchant bank gets, right?
And therefore,
So
the possibility of our reaping a bigger fruit, if I can call it that, and our business succeeding is higher because merchant bank is going to bring more specialization and specialists and so on to the party, if I can call it that.
Correct. They're going to bring, well, that could be separate because remember, merchant bank is also in the business of fees. They make a lot of their income from fees, okay? So while this may be one part of it, if they put in technical expertise, they may charge the business for it. If they put in managerial expertise, they may charge the business for it. Right? Because most of merchant bank income come from fees and the returns they get from their involvement. But the important thing about the Bucco right now is that they don't have the burden of interest and repayment of loan forming part of their expenditure structure. And so now they are able to put a competitive price out there and allow dividends and returns to go to the merchant bank. So this whole question of equity comes back here again to what we are calling a stock market. What we call a stock market would not pass muster in many places, and it's unfortunate because what is called a stock market today was actually put in place by the former PNC government. I remembered back, I think it was in the late 80s, when Gwyneth was Minister of Finance, that steps were taken to study the establishment of a stock market in Guyana, and I can remember somebody coming out of UK, coming here to do the study, and so on. And I thought we missed an opportunity to really have that market go by not putting all the privatization entities. The entities, remember we privatized over 100 something entities over the last couple of decades. If we had put them up via the stock market, perhaps the ownership structure of many of those entities would have been wider, deeper, and it would have deepened the stock market, and it would have provided confidence of the alternative approach to financing in this country. Because clearly the commercial banks remain the go-to because of the wealth of money that they have. But you know who have more money than the commercial banks, I would think? Those who participate in the bank itself, and those who don't. Because if like Bank CIH and like DDL, who are on the stock market, like Bank CIH and DDL, who are on the stock market, a number of companies, medium to large companies, who are crying out about going to commercial banks and having access problems, could list on the stock market through an IPO, an initial purchase offering, an initial public offering. They can do that and list on the stock market. And so you with your 5 cents on your bed, me with 3 cents and so on, we could look at this company and say, this company is an oil and gas company. It's going to service those FPSOs. You're going to have about 10 or 11 FPSOs out there over time. So this company is a gold mine. So I am prepared to invest in this company in return for a dividend. Okay? Now what happens there? Several things happen there right away. That company has moved from Mr. XYZ family-owned business, struggling to have financing because they don't have the kind of access to the commercial banks, because banks can only lend up to a certain amount to a business. They can't overload, they can't overheat, and they can't overexpose. So, and then of course, businesses dependence on their owners and on the family and all this kind of thing. That's a limitation to that. But now, if they're prepared to expand ownership of the business and move it from Mr. XYZ and family into XYZ company, they could retain the name, but now it's company. And it's not private company now, it's public company, that where now you have a shareholders and board of directors. But you know what happened in Guyana? When you look at the ownership structure of businesses in Guyana, middle to large businesses in Guyana, when you look at the ownership structure, there are a bunch of family businesses who do not believe in others coming into their business.
True.
Despite the success of Banks CIH and DDL, despite the success of Banks CIH and DDL, if Peter De Geer was minded the same way, look at the vision of Peter De Geer. Look when he turned Banks CIH into a public company. Look is when he turned Banks CIH into a public company. Look since when. Yes, super sad. Look when he turned DDL into a public company. Look at their growth and success today. You hear them, both of them, as a matter of fact, both of them own banks. Both of them own banks. Banks CIH has Citizen Bank, DDL has Demerara Bank. And both of them have diversified widely. Both of them have international acclaim. So you have all of these advantages going for public ownership, and yet you have all of these businesses who are looking for capital, who refuse to go public, and then complain about access to capital. You recall me making this point a couple of weeks ago, when of all people, the head of a business organization in Guyana is complaining about access to capital at the banks. I couldn't believe it. But yet still, that person who's complaining owns a family business. Owns a family business. And when you look at all those other businesses in the various business groups and so on, family businesses, they refuse to relinquish control. Refuse to relinquish control for free money. Because it's free money, you don't owe any bank. It's equity versus debt. Equity is given a stake of a shareholder in your company, versus debt, which is given a stake to the commercial banks in your company. Debt you have to repay. Equity you repay in the form of a dividend. So if the company is not making any money, you can't pay a dividend. So the company is transferring risk from the singular owner or multiple private owners to the general public. But they don't want to do that. You rather go complain to your masters and say, well, we don't have access to the commercial bank, let me do something. And then you got these policies where you're rushing out to try to do this access to the banks. You try to do this access, and then you go and you create so much problems in the banking system with all these multiple interest rates. You have an interest rate for housing, right? A subsidized interest rate for housing, for which the taxpayers are paying the subsidy, and subsidized interest rate in the right sector for all those debts that the right sector racked up, right? So you have a subsidized rate or a cut on the tax on tax payments by banks. because of the bad debts and all these guys. So you put all of those, you mess with the banking system, and then you turn around and tell the banking system will have all these high rates. You think if we had a thriving stock market where people can go there, you have an IPO coming out every day or every other day or every week and so on, where people are trusting the public more and more to get involved in the business, that you think when the commercial banks got that kind of competition that they will maintain the kind of interest rates that they are maintaining? Because people are going to be more and more out monies from the commercial bank to go and invest in these new companies, startups, and all these kinds of stories. So our whole financial system needs to be deepened. Now the brother asks whether ways in which grassroots entrepreneurs qualifying for startups, SME financing from the bank. Again, I think I've answered it in the sense that I'm saying, whether it's grassroots or otherwise, all banks and all finance institutions are going to look at the proposal that you're putting up, at the business proposal that you're putting up, and so on. And so I think when we talk about grassroots, don't let us give it this impression that it's it's like a raster and so on, where it doesn't come on. Grassroots only from the standpoint that it's coming from the beginning. But you had the Bill Gates and so on, who had grassroots businesses. They started out in the garage or in the basement and so forth. Those are the kind of business I presume that the guy is talking about. So we need now people who can move from an idea into a business proposal. I think this is where a merchant bank might come in. But since a merchant bank will charge a fee, and you don't have that kind of money, I think this is where, certainly from the standpoint of the black community, that we can put together some kind of business support group. Again, as I said, I'm dealing. This is August is our Black History Month and so on and so forth. So I'm not going national because I don't know that this is going to be done. I don't know that this is going. So I'm talking here now, continuing the black framework, that we could put up together a black support business group that will teach people, or will help people along the way to move from their idea. Show them where, help them put it together in a proposal, and show them where they can go startup financing or so on. Again, as I said, part of that work will be a compendium of financial support that may be available in Guyana and overseas. To assist such type of businesses. A lot of businesses die in the initiative stage because the people do not know where to go. Okay, they do not know where to go. Another of my babies that you don't know is that I created that innovation fund under the Ministry of Education to help support students, and I see it was for people who also had graduated already. They put it for people who had graduated, but to help support students with these ideas, these science ideas and so on, in that initial stage, to help it move from there so that after they left school and so on, they can become bankable projects. This is what you have to, we have to promote in Guyana. All right, so I feel that there is enough talent in the black community, and I feel there's talent that we could call upon for people in people outside of the black community that we could call upon. Because again, as I said, promoting these initiatives is not at the expense of the other race groups. Promoting these initiatives empowers the black community, and it empowers other communities. It empowers other communities. So it's not a us versus them scenario. It's a question of trying to ease the tensions in society and so on, where blacks are feeling frustrated, African guys are feeling frustrated, the self-worth is going down, and they feel that the whole world is against them. And so I think they need that confidence and support. And we go right back to it, that it takes a village to raise a child. It will also take the village to raise the black Noor. It will take that village to bring the inventiveness and the innovation out of that individual or and so on. So yes, we have this additional feature. I wish the brother success. I wish him success, and that he will not, again, as a black-headed business, I am hoping and praying that he succeeds, because in this particular area, as you well know, they will always point to Globe Trust. They will always point to Globe Trust. That is an unfortunate event in the history of black business, black financing, of the black community. But I see, and what I see progress under the guys like Trevor Ben and what he was doing for the Ghana Cooperative Credit Union. Mm-hmm. And again, as I said at that symposium, it seems that success is anathema in the black community, because there you go. This man was doing something that was credible, that was promoting empowerment, was empowering people, and he was pulled down by his own. He was pulled down by his own. But I maintain that the Cooperative Credit Union can form itself into a successful banking institution and provide that same support that is provided and more, but now under a structured arrangement. Okay? But now under a structured arrangement. And given all the technology that you have, you don't have to have bricks and mortar around the place, in other words, big fancy headquarters and so forth. What you have to have is good internet products and so on, and good PR products to make certain that your people can get access and availability of the credit that you provided. But I still maintain, with the right approach, such savings and so on can be mobilized. I know the black community is going to be very wary of another black institution after Globe Trust. I mean, I meet people every day who said, Minister, Mr. Jordan, I lost so much money in it, why y'all didn't think, and so on. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, and some people lost their pension and all kind of story in there. And the trust issues, they have, black people don't have trust issues when it comes to institutions. But I think we have to work on that trust.
Sure.
One storm does not make a swallow, or one swallow does not make a storm, whatever it is. We have to learn from these. We have to learn. We also have to learn, that we are within an environment, a powerful environment, that doesn't necessarily want to see us make that kind of progress. Dependency is a very powerful tool used to suppress people. And it's up to us to break that chain of dependency, or this thing, the feeling that your self-worth, you're not able to do anything, or you're not supposed to be in that field, and so on. There's a lot of barriers to break, a lot of glass ceilings to break, and so on. But I think we have to be prepared to go the extra mile. And like I said, we have to put together rather than pulling apart. We have to pull together. We have to pull together, and that is what, unfortunately, I know it's not going to happen anytime soon. but we need to make baby steps, incremental steps in changing this whole status quo that we seem to have got ourselves in. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. It's now 8 minutes 58. That's 2 minutes till the 9 o'clock hour. And so, given the challenges we have, we're going to take a wrap. Those of you who are tuned live, just you can alert your friends that I will be posting shortly a recording of this last segment of Boxtonia Morning Time. And so those of you who are blocked, you can get to view it. You can comment. I will try to follow your comments, and we'll follow them up in a subsequent program. In the meantime, have a great day. Join us this evening with Dr. Hines of Politics 101. And certainly tomorrow morning, Dr. Hines will be on with me on Boxtonia Morning Time, addressing the issues. Have a great day. Don't let the enemies beat you down. They can fight you. There's nothing wrong with falling. It is failing together. And so when they knock us down, we will keep getting up. Have a good day, y'all. Goodbye.